All right.
And by the way, we're live. Okay. Got it.
And by the way, let's see, we are live. So this is my brother, Ivan Nikolov.
Oh, yeah.
Or
right
so
here.
it appears.
Thank you, brother Christopher, for having me here on this conversation. They always go in most unexpected ways. I'm so curious to see where this conversation leads us this time.
I'm ready for it, brother. And first, I do want to say this because I was thinking about it just moments before we started. I was like, man, this, like, what can I say? Like, I was thinking of like an introduction for you, and I was really thinking like, what feels good and true? And what came through, I was like, this is the man who introduced me to my partner, my divine lover, my future wife. And that alone, like right there, I'm just like filled up with so much gratitude, because I literally would not be where I'm at today in Bulgaria, your home country. And just so happens Slavka, my partner, she's also Bulgarian. So I just have so much gratitude. And that's the only thing that came through as introduction.
Thank you, man. And right now my ego is also saying, yeah, we did something amazing. So just being human. But I so much appreciate having both of you in my life.
Yeah. 4 years. We're going on knowing each other for 4 years. Can you believe that?
Actually, going on 5.
Going on 5.
2016, yeah.
God, I'm I'm losing track in the best possible way, Oh man. So before we hopped on, Ivan and I were talking about this. I'm going to call him a life philosopher, and his name's Bernardo Kastrup. And I have 7 questions written down that just came through right before I started the hit play today. And one of them's got to do with Bernardo, actually, this philosopher. And in the show notes, I'm going to link I'd like to actually link the one that you brought up, the one that he did with a psychologist, because I myself haven't seen that. And then I'll link one of my favorites from him too. But Bernardo, I actually discovered him because there was a video on YouTube that said, you're pretending you're God and you're just pretending you've forgotten, or something like this. And I'm like, okay, that's a video that I'm going to watch. And especially because it had my one of my favorite, I consider him a teacher. He considers me a friend. He's like, he's not a teacher. He's just a friend. And Rupert Spira, he's an author. He's an artist. He has retreats. He does things online right now. It was him featuring this other guy, Kurt Jamengall. He does the Theory of Everything podcast and show on iTunes. Anyhow, I listened to this interview between Kurt and Rupert, and Kurt was then interviewing Bernardo, and I just started going through Kurt's YouTube page, and I was like, wow, there's all these incredible minds that are talking about consciousness, spirituality, but they're talking about it from different ways. And that just, I think in your human design, I know for mine, it's like I love combining things. And so when things are like different large areas, and then when we can do that, we're totally thriving. So long story short, I discovered Bernardo because of Rupert Spira, who his teacher's teacher's teacher is a man named, and this is question / like statement number 2, Ramana Maharshi. And so I have Ramana Maharshi, self-inquired non-duality, as like one, just like if you want to speak on whatever your experience has been, or anything you want to share in relationship to that, or otherwise.
Well, my exposure to Maharshi has been, not long ago, actually. I learned about this from another Indian teacher who's actually a professor in the United States, Sri Kumar Rao, and he recommends 3 books, and the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi, in his own words, is one of these 3 books. Another one is Awareness by Anthony de Mello, but which is a very heavy lifting book. Just like
did you write Awake? Did that guy write the book Awake?
What is it?
Did Anthony de Mello? Oh no, I'm thinking of somebody else that I just recently heard. Excuse me. I was thinking that author wrote this other book that I'm reading right now on awareness.
Well, Anthony de Mello is also Indian. He was an Indian Jesuit priest.
I remember. Yeah.
But his philosophy falls so far behind all religion and these studies. It's really a prime work on awareness and heightened consciousness at the level of enlightenment. And the work of Sri Ramana Maharshi exposed me actually to what enlightenment really means, which is literally answering the question, who am I? But answering this question from a place,
who would have thought?
Not the asker. It's the mind asking the question, but it cannot be answered from the mind. And for as long as it's answered from the mind, there is no enlightenment. And it's such a big contradiction for a small human mind that how can you transcend the asker when the asker is asking the question? That's what enlightenment means, according to what I understand. It's getting behind the activity, the mind that's asking the question. It's amazing. It's amazing. How do you get behind the me and everything that means me to a person? How do you get to the source?
And okay. I'm already thinking of what people might be thinking of. Well, yeah, why is that practical? Why would I want to do that?
I don't say it's practical. I don't say it's practical. In fact,
why should anyone do it?
I don't say anybody should do it. I think that eventually this is a game that we're playing. It may take quite a few times coming back here and running into a physical body and jumping into and running around, but that's ultimately the game that we're playing. I believe. I don't know if this is true, but this is the truth that I've chosen to believe in. And I don't think that's achievable for me in my own journey this time around. I don't even know if I want it.
Because who's the eye that doesn't know?
Exactly. Maybe the little small glimpses that I've had because of psychedelic journeys or meditation or deep inquiry, that's also a form of meditation, are enough for me right now. And maybe I don't want to just be living from that space of transcendence and experiencing life this way, because maybe it's just a different experience that I don't want. And maybe I just don't understand. That's what it is. But either way, it's fine the way it is right now.
Okay, well, I'm happy that you ended right there, because that's dude, and you know this about me, I pretty much, since I've got exposed to, I just had a natural interest in what I would consider spirituality, but since I've discovered it, and especially since my plant medicine journeys and meditations, I've just been relentlessly, I guess I would say, obsessed with whatever this waking up thing is, kind of. And I don't know. I have to say I don't know, because I don't know, but I don't even know that this is a belief. I don't even know that what I'm about to say is a belief. But the crazy thing is if the experiences, because now they're objective experiences, and I'm constructing a story, to talk about this thing, and in knowing that I'm constructing a story, I already know that it's part of this egoic identity, even though it's a spiritual one that I'm bringing into the present. I mean, it's crazy. It's literally, so what I was gonna say and what I will say, because I just, a lot of the time I feel like we are talking about that which is impossible to actually ever give words to. And yet, here's the crazy part, all words come from it, are made of it, and it's indescribable. And at the same time, it's the only thing we're ever talking about, and nothing actually changes. So, you ended off by saying, like, I'm okay with the way it is. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what they're saying, this whole enlightenment. It's like nothing actually happens. We break free of thinking that there was ever a thing that we thought needed to be different to begin with. And that's how subtle the tricky fucking little mind is.
Exactly. I suspect that the reason why I'm saying that this is not for me this lifetime around is exactly because I'm coming from the mind. And there is no way for me to even think about this from behind the mind. I'm trapped in my mind right now. And for better or worse, it is what it is. And it's okay for now.
Right. And so, like, you are, you're not, and you are all at the same time.
But human language doesn't do that justice, because there is nothing beyond you are. There is nothing beyond you are not. There is nothing that you can describe in the middle, and you're limited by language. I remember when I was doing my ayahuasca journey, and I was pulled so far up. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it, right? It cannot be described by words, but if I'm doing injustice to this, that's the best I can do by using human language. So I was pulled so far out into nothingness and everythingness. And I remember seeing human language, the way we express ourselves, as a little black dot somewhere far in the distance. I mean, that was not even accessible to me in this state of mind.
Right.
And it felt so small and so insignificant, trying to express what happens, what I feel through human language. It's just insignificant.
Did you have an awareness of your, like, simultaneously when you were aware of human language, did you also have an awareness of your own body and your mind at that time, simultaneously?
No, because I was not me. It was
okay.
Well, see, this is where I run into limitation with human language. I cannot describe it, but it was like source looking at itself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't me the way I know of me now.
Yeah.
But it's me describing it now, and so that's why it sounds like it was me.
It's almost like you are, like, something about what we're saying right now is, I feel like, pointing to this idea of you are, like, based on what you just said, you are your experience. Like, you and your experience, there's really not a difference in a way, you know what I mean? Because you just described something that happened to you, but you as a mind and body weren't even really there, or at least not consciously.
What's coming to mind right now is maybe what I'm thinking right now. The path to enlightenment starts with consciousness moving away from experiences and distancing itself from the experiences, so that we step more and more into the point of view, the role of the observer, of the subject observing the object, so that experiences, circumstances, people, events are actually things that are happening. They're the experiences. And when awareness is stepping back, it's observing all of this. But maybe at the point where awareness steps behind the mind, which is what the sages call enlightenment, maybe that's when everything merges, and that's what we call everythingness and nothingness, because we just don't have words to describe what it is, and description is not even possible. Only experience of it is possible, I think.
And then it's like there's somehow the experience of speaking about things is somehow apart from experience. You know, like there's something that excludes when we share an idea with language that it's not quite well that's what language is, right? It's symbols, it's representation for whatever the real thing is. And I guess I just answered my own question there.
Well, ask yourself the next question, see where that goes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, so okay, actually I wanted to ask you about can I talk about the experience that you had when you had your neural feedback session?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Now, I cannot disclose details as far as what the questions were and what the experiment was about, because this is still has not been published as paper, but I can talk about my own experience, and I think that's what you're after. So absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, essentially. So I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. Like I've been putting a lot of thought into what is it that happened to you, and I have this this theory, and it's pretty cool, and I want to share it with you. So a lot of the time when people would ask Ramana Maharshi about death, he would respond this, and this has to do with the experience that Yvonne had, or at least I suspect it has something to do with it. He would respond a lot of the time and say, well, who are you when you're sleeping? Are you afraid when you go to bed at night? He would basically point out to people that they disappear every single night and they're resurrected in the morning, but they never worry about it. And that somehow is different than death. Well, there's a saying, and I think it was derived from Ramana Maharshi, but it might be just some other teachers. It goes something like this: for the sage, for the enlightened sage, for someone who is awake, deep sleep is like the wakeful state, and the wakeful state is like sleep for them. So everything is sort of in a way reversed. And when we're in the deepest sleep, what I believe the Hindus and those that are referring to this are talking about is the time at night when we're not dreaming at all. So we're not dreaming the body, and yet they're doing studies on Buddhist meditators. There's an awareness. There is an awareness that actually can be there. It's non-dual. It's totally merged with everything. Like there's no differences in anything, apparently. And you can actually be awake and aware. That is really just being awake and aware in subjective non-dual reality all the time. And yet they're still able to function. You know, they're still able to drink a glass of water. They're not bumping into walls and shit. Like they can still sense edges, but not in the way that we do. Anyhow, I suspect that what happened while you were, I think they had music playing, and
well, why don't I describe exactly what happened?
Please,
just
yeah.
what happened, and then you can tell me what you think actually happened.
Perfect. That's perfect.
So that's the context. Participating in this neural entrainment study. Can you hear me? It says the internet is.
It went out and it came back on. Yeah.
So I was participating a few weeks ago in this neural entrainment, brain entrainment study. So I had all these, this helmet with all of these wires sticking out of it. I had things attached to my fingers. I had things strapped to my chest to read my breathing and whatever they were reading. I also know that I was sitting in a chair, and I was seeing in front of me on the wall, they were projecting my brain waves. And so this was the setup. And then the experiment started, the study started. And so I had to close my eyes. So it was a form of meditation, basically.
Just like classical instrumental music?
Well, this is, yes, let's say it was sound, but I can't disclose exactly what it was, but it was a sound. And so I had the headphones on, and I had my eyes closed, and I was in a very relaxed state. And I don't know where exactly this was, but the whole thing was about 17 minutes. And at one moment, I was very relaxed, but fully aware. And the two people were sitting behind me, the scientist and actually my wife. who's also a scientist. Christopher, can you hear me?
Yeah, it cut out, but we're good.
Okay.
I heard everything.
So the two people that was staying behind me, the main scientist who was running this study, and my wife, who's also a scientist. And I heard him tell her, he's asleep right now. He's sleeping. And she said, oh, really? And then I remember I internalized all of this, and I started making sure that I continue looking like I was asleep. And basically, I instructed my mind to hold on to that state. But what happened was actually the opposite. My heart rate started increasing up. My breathing, that was deep belly breathing, started going up. And basically, from a very deep parasympathetic activated state, I was shifting into sympathetic, into the fight or flight state. And at one point, my breathing was up here. I was swallowing already. I was barely keeping my eyes closed. I was in a close to hyperventilated state. And at this point, I realized whatever that state was that I was in, that was, maybe theta state, maybe even delta, I don't know. But I said, right now, I know my eyes are closed, but if I open my eyes, it probably show on the wall that I'm in beta state in some kind of a stress mode. So let me just let go of that and relax. And as soon as I let go, and understand, I'm saying as soon as I let go, but I mean as soon as my mind let go of trying to control the situation, within not more than 30 seconds, I was back to pretty much where I was before this thing happened. And this gave me this reflection. Wow, isn't this interesting? The mind trying to control the body, it's actually making it worse. And when the mind moves out of the way, my body finds its place effortlessly. I don't have to do anything. The mind doesn't have to do anything. The body knows exactly where it needs to be. And it goes there by itself. And I thought, this is probably how we create disease in the body.
Yeah.
The mind just goes in different kinds of directions and it messes up the body. And if the mind steps out of the way, the body will just fall back into place. It'll heal itself. And it was such a big revelation for me. And we're taking a walk with my wife. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? My connection says it's unstable. So after the study, we're taking a walk with my wife. And I tell her this story. And I said, by the way, I heard when the scientist told you that I'm asleep. And she said, what? I said, yeah, I heard him when he told you he's sleeping right now. She said, really?
Brother, you're frozen
Never
on my
told
end.
me that. And I'm like, am I okay now?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. Did that come through? Yes, I was whispering to her, I know when the scientist told you that I was asleep. I know when he said he's sleeping right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? He never told me anything like this. And then I just went, I made that up. And so all of it was just the mind going away, coming back, dropping some kind of a clue, then trying to take over and messing things up with my body. And then when we let it go, everything went back to normal. So maybe I was dreaming, but I was on a chair, so I wasn't, in a way, I had consciousness because I was not falling. I knew I was there, but I
Yeah.
must have been in deeper waves, maybe theta, if I dreamed up something like this. I don't know.
Do you
So
have any
this
memory?
is the context. This is what happened. Hmm?
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, do you have any memory at all of a thought, if there was a thought that you might have been having preceding the thought, I'm in this really relaxed, like, were there any thoughts before you had the thought, oh no, your first thought that you remember is that thought?
The first thing that I remember is he telling her that I was asleep.
But you knew right before, like a moment before that, that you were in a really, did you know?
No, I didn't have awareness. I
Okay.
suspected that I was in a very deep state.
So you didn't even, you actually, but then it's crazy because you made it up.
Yeah,
That it was
probably
a
I made
thought. It
it
wasn't
up.
even, okay.
Yeah,
Do you have any, I have a hypothesis of what happened.
I'm willing to hear it.
Do you have a hypothesis?
Nothing that explains it beyond what I already shared.
Okay.
My
Okay.
hypothesis is that I was in lower brainwaves
Uh-huh.
and maybe somewhere switching from delta back to theta waves. Maybe I dreamt up something, and then I raised all the way up to maybe beta waves, and then I dropped back again. So I'm looking only from the perspective of the brain waves, and also how the mind, when the mind interferes with the desire to control, especially control the body, how it actually messes things up. And my thinking since then has been, if my mind, if I try to force things by way of mind, maybe that's how I'm messing up other aspects of my reality. But I still don't have proof for that. But I have a suspicion.
Yeah. But talk about the, like, a gift of taking a real, like, live microcosmic experience and then testing it out in real. I mean, it's actually really cool to do something like that. So here's my theory. This is my hypothesis. And I probably spent at least a good, like, I don't know, hour just like thinking about just this one thing. And so I'm really excited to share it with you. So you're going to have to help me out with the different brain states, because I'm pretty sure when you're in deep dreamless sleep, when you're in the deepest possible zone of sleep, isn't that gamma? Do you know?
Gamma is on the opposite side. It's higher than beta
Right.
waves. It's very high frequency. And as far as I understand, that's associated with glimpse into intuition and altered states. Maybe in a way, it's similar experience to being in a deep delta, like dreamless sleep,
Yeah.
but in a way that you're still conscious and you can be aware of things. But I also know that these gamma waves are still not accepted fully by all branches of science.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, if anybody knows in the comments, you're more than welcome to let us know which is which, because I'm very curious myself. I'll probably look into that, because and this is why I'm saying this with caution, but I'm pretty sure, and it's super fascinating, that when these Buddhist monks, or probably Ramana Maharshi, he never got brain scans done to him, but when they're in this really, really deep, relaxed state, or a stateless state, because there's not an individual even there, that it's actually gamma. But I have no idea, because Zlanka told me the same thing. She was saying that gamma is like actually a lot of neural firing, and it sounds to me like it's a state where the brain is actually, in a sense, like hyperactive. So I don't know. All I'm really saying is these Buddhist monks they get into this identityless state, that's for sure. And that state, whatever it is, whatever sleep state it is, correlates to deep sleep. And so my what I think happened with you was you were in a really, you became aware, and with this, we're talking milliseconds upon milliseconds, and I'm stretching it out over a minute that it's going to take to say it, but I'm talking about like this happening almost seemingly all at one time. So you were consciously aware that you were in this really, really deep state. And so I think that in that moment, when you became consciously aware of that, you were actually naturally, it was just the natural end of the deep state of sleep into the next phase of sleep that's not quite as deep, but it's the first time that the I thought can appear. And the moment that the I thought appeared, you created this dream. It was like a dream that you created. And then, but the dream kind of freaked you out a little bit. So you, in a way, woke yourself up. But that's like what my hypothesis is.
Actually, this sounds very, very reasonable. I will know for sure if and when the scientist shares the actual brainwave data, and if I can correlate whatever is seen there on the scan with the exact minute I think this happened. But here is something else interesting. This little band right here that measures also my sleep phases. It said after that I took a 40-minute nap. And by the way, I did 2 studies back to back, 2 of 17. So it was close to 40 minutes with the setup and everything. It said that I took a 40-minute nap, of which 20 minutes were deep sleep. And I have never taken a nap during the day where I had deep sleep in the nap. It's always been light state, not even REM, the dreaming state in a nap.
Hooked up. You've been tested in other, or are you just, that's what your experience is?
No. I mean, in my daily experience, when I take naps, it's always a very light napping without even much dreaming at all. But let alone going all the way to dreamless sleep, which is the deep sleep. And so what you're saying here sounds very plausible to me, in a way that I may have dropped into delta state, the deep sleep, what do you call it? The dreamless sleep, still being upright on the chair. And when I was switching from delta to theta, I dreamed up something, and then that took me all the way up to whatever, probably beta waves, where I was in stress. Very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting indeed. All right. Well, I got another question, unless there's anything that you got a lot of cool things happening. So,
if I have the opportunity to slide something in here, several days ago, I read an article about Buddhist monks or people who are basically on this enlightenment path. And we know that they're enlightened people. According to David Hawkins, Power versus Force, we know that there are around 700 people around the world who are in this enlightened state, probably at any one time. So more or less around 700. So we know that there are enlightened people who are living behind the veil of me consciousness, let's say. So the article that I read was about studying those people who have achieved enlightenment when they die. So what they've known in history, throughout history, and even today, scientists have observed that it takes somewhere between 3 to 33 days, I think the number was, before the body starts decomposing after an enlightened person dies. The body just stays the same. And then it starts decomposing really fast. And the scientists are trying to study what's happening. But it kind of presents a lot of difficulties with studying this, because they cannot really attach wires to the people, to the dying enlightened individuals, because what happens is right after death, they go through these Barrow periods where they go through this purification. And our measurement of time, it may take from 3 to 33 days is what they're observing these days. And so they cannot disturb the master when they're going through this process, so they cannot attach all these wires to them. They know that there is no activity in the brain that exists there after they die. So there's no lighting up in the brain. But that what they're saying now, the scientists are saying that this doesn't mean that nothing's happening. This only means that we may be able to rule out the brain as where things are actually happening.
So it's their
Which
body actually appears
I find
alive.
this, yes, well, it's not alive because it's not moving, but it's motionless, nothing's happening, but it's
Right.
not decomposing. It's not decomposing. They're just sitting there in their pose, going through the process after death. And as soon as the
Right.
process is complete, the body starts decomposing really fast. And now it's just a body. It's just a thing. So I find this incredibly fascinating. Even the fact that they know that it's not in the brain. So whatever, if we can extrapolate anything, which is pretty early, by the way, so I'm just fantasizing, which may mean that what we call mind is not only an activity of the brain. I believe that it's not, but maybe science is getting closer to where this might be proved.
You know, the word mind, actually, whenever it was translated from Greek or whatever, I don't know what language it originally came from, but the word soul, well, psyche. So that's where the word mind, soul, psyche splits into mind, soul, and yeah, that's it. So actually the word mind and soul meant, it used to mean the same thing until the churches were actually like, no, stay out of our territory. We have the soul. You can deal with the material mind. So it's just interesting when you actually look at that word too, you know? I think I lost you for a minute, but okay. Not only is that incredibly like just so fascinating. That's one of my questions. One of the questions that I wrote down. Well, here before I get to it, I want to share this with you about Ramana Maharshi, which we can't measure because he died, I think, in the early 1900s or something like this.
1950.
But apparently, 1950, yeah, 1950. So not really that long ago. I mean, when we look at time over a longer period, he actually, when he first had his awakening experience at a very young age, apparently for the first 10 years, like he as a mind and body was figuring out actually how to integrate being or at least appearing in some way, shape, or form as a temporary mind and body. Dude, this conversation, I fucking love that we're having it. Like, I'm just so stoked and like happy to be. Like, I had an out of body experience for a moment watching what's happening. I was like, this is cool. Like, this is really cool that we're having this. So I'm having an out of body experience. Ramana Maharshi's having it. Ramana Maharshi would lay in a cave, and I guess they would report that bugs and stuff would start crawling on his flesh.
And rodents eating him, and he would just sit in meditation. And that's probably exactly what it was. He didn't know how to be back in the body fully and protect that. And they had to feed him, actually, because he wasn't feeding himself at all.
Yeah.
So it took a while to, like you said, to learn how to live with the body again in this human experience. And he became enlightened when he was, I think, 16 or 17, and he was dead. He was dead and turned purple for 15 minutes or 17 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
And then he came back in his body. That's on the web, on the Wikipedia page about him. It's the whole description of his life is there. That's where they share it. So he was dead actually for 15 or 17 minutes before he came back into his body. And then he was in silence for a few years. And then when his mother actually found him, because he left the house when he was 14 or 15, to go seek enlightenment. When his mother actually found him, he didn't talk to her because he was in complete silence. And she begged him to come back. He never said anything, and she eventually went back. But then later she came back and she became one of the disciples. So he became her teacher. To her and to his brother as well.
Yeah.
Their other son. And she died in the temple there later on.
I would love to visit that temple. I think that the name of it is Arunachala, the name of the mountain that he went and lived near. And Arunachala means mountain of light. What a badass place to live. You know, I live on a mountain of light. That's sweet.
I like room with light. That's good for me right now.
Room with light. Okay. Yes. So yeah, I'm thinking about this. So there's two things. The question that I have, it's so funny, like, because this was the one that was on my mind to ask, which is what happens when you die? And then you started sharing this thing that you wanted to share. And I mean, I think not only is that question interesting, so take this from whatever angle that you want to take it. I at the level of interest that you and I share for matters like this, I think that it's probably a very small percentage of people. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think it's like, God, and I'm not saying like we're special or better. Like I just don't think many people enjoy conversations talking about things like this. But so I'm kind of, I have this meta awareness around you and I, and it's like, why is this important to us, or why are we even talking about it, and why does it matter? Along with the question, what happens when you die?
Well, I think it matters because we are not enlightened, so we're still subjected to the human condition, and this is one of the main questions in the human conditions. Why am I here? Yeah. What am I here for? And why am I really here? Why did I show up when I'll die one day? And this is what we struggle with. I don't know if I want to call it a theory, or let's call it a belief. My belief is that when we die, it's literally like going into deep sleep, the one without dreaming, without coming back. But I also believe that there is an experience there that's not exactly like the dream state that we know. It's something much cleaner than this. Where we're in a pure awareness that we are transitioning right now. And I believe that there is no way to experience what we call fear in the human experience. We don't experience that during the transition. Or I may be completely wrong, and it might be just like going deep sleep and transitioning. I don't know. I believe that energy is not lost. I believe in this law that energy is just changes form. I don't hang on to this law because I want immortality and because I'm hoping that way I'm not going to really die. I used to be afraid of that. I don't think I'm afraid of that. So by way of background, some years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I was an atheist. And I believe that this is just this. And when this drops, it's like pressing the button on a TV set, turning it off, and it's over. And there's nothing more. The mind is gone, the body's there, and there is no soul to depart or reborn or anything like this. So I don't really have fear that's still detectable in me, that I need to seek immortality by believing that, oh, I'm not really dying, I'm transitioning into something else. But this is purely what I think is happening. It's some kind of going into deep sleep without coming back, but also having some kind of awareness that doesn't quite look like dreaming.
Have you eaten a lot of mushrooms? Have you had a lot, like a heroic dose of mushrooms ever?
Actually, I've never done mushrooms.
Okay.
I've only done ayahuasca and LSD,
Hmm.
but never mushrooms. This is something that's still ahead of me.
So that's incredible to hear, that in 7 years. Well, I guess anything can change and even shorter than that amount of time. But so yeah, this is what I'm thinking. To question our beliefs, right? Because for some reason, I don't know why, but it seems to me to be important to question my beliefs, especially the beliefs that I don't even see that I have. Because, well, I can't question them, but maybe somebody else can point them out. So what I'm pointing out is to explore with what you said, which I understand was what you used to believe, but I also just want to explore it to see if there's anything that might still be there. And by I'm exploring this inquiry too, like pretty regularly, at least once a day, I'll sit with this. Yeah, maybe every other day. What evidence do we have to even say this is life to begin with? And I could say that in another way, which is, I'll keep it as simple as I possibly can. So the first way of saying it is, what evidence do we have to even believe that whatever is appearing to happen to us right now is actually even life versus the other side of that being death? Now, if I said it another way, it would be, is consciousness? Because there's like, is it, that's the whole sentence, is consciousness. I don't know. And the I, whatever it is, consciousness that's aware, I understand that the thing that it might have an appearance of existence. And this is it right here. So everything could be appearing as having some sort of reality, but ultimately the truth could be this is nothing appearing as everything, and there's not a goddamn thing going on. There's nothing happening, and whatever is happening, I'm just saying, well, yeah, I am alive, or this is consciousness, and I'm coming and going, is it really though? and genuinely, like, I don't. That's so I want to explore that with you. What do you have to comment on that, if anything?
All I can say is I don't know either, and that's the best we can do.
I was hoping for an answer.
Yeah, come on. I don't have the answers. You told me that once we were on the phone. If you're here for answers, I don't have any answers for you. I don't know.
We have nothing.
Really, that's the truth. I don't know. Anything, if I state it any other way, then I'll be a liar. I really don't know. What I know is that I'm not living in the hopes of being immortal in some way.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with the fact that I'll transition one day, which is what we call death.
I don't think you have a lot of
I don't know if you've heard of this contemporary young philosopher. What's his name? Borstrom, Nick Borstrom. He's from the Scandinavian countries. He's developed this, among many other things, I'm sure he's developed this simulation argument. And it's three hypotheses that form this argument. One is that we are simulated by other beings. One is that we are simulated by our more advanced, very far future versions of us. And the third one is that we're just having these human experiences, we're not simulated at all. And it's a very interesting argument, and he doesn't say which one is more true than the other. It's just an argument that he's posing, and there are pros and cons to each one of these three arguments in the hypothesis, or in three hypotheses in this argument. So I think the video is called Simulation Argument by Nick Borstrom. It's pretty interesting, but honestly, I don't know. We might be simulated, we might be just a part of a game, or we might have this human experience, or it might be nothing there at all. It might be just some kind of a dream of consciousness that has gazillions of individuations and it just dreams that way. And we experience that like individuals. Who knows? I don't know. But what resonates with me a lot is what it's an example that Bernardo Castro gave about each one of us being a ripple in a lake, and this lake is consciousness. It's universal consciousness. It's everythingness, nothingness, everything that we don't have language for. And he said, you are not you. You have properties, you have depth, you have height, you have length, but you are the lake. You come from the lake, you go into the lake, you are the lake. Just for a time period, you appear as a ripple, but you cannot be scooped and taken out of the lake because you're no longer the ripple. You are a ripple only because you're the lake. You come from the lake and you go into the lake. And the lake is you, just like you are the lake. The lake creates the ripple, and there is no ripple without a lake. It's amazing. And thinking about it this way is somewhat easier for me to explain how universal consciousness, whatever the undescribable is, and these individuated consciousness as that we call our each individual, how we are all a part of the same thing, but we've forgotten. And maybe that's a part of the game, the amnesia, so that we can have the experiences on the path of remembering. And maybe the full remembering of everything is what we call enlightenment.
Wow. Well said, brother. Well said. Tell me what you think about this in relationship to Bernardo and what you just said, which, by the way, when you were saying it, dude, totally, I felt like I was watching him. It was almost like a deja vu moment where I felt like you were just channeling straight Bernardo right there. Like you've really clearly, obviously been, listening to it and
just
feeling.
Go watch him. I'm basically just a very beginner student of this stuff. Don't watch me, go watch him.
It was well articulated is what I'm getting at, to the point where I've kind of had a deja vu moment.
I'm not saying that to you, I'm saying that to your viewers later on. I know you introduced me to the guy, so right. I know about him from you, so definitely.
Yes, of course. And I will have in the links or in the comments a couple of the conversations, which, by the way, there is a book of his that I'm reading, which is the one called Why Materialism is Baloney, which is a cool title, and that's free online. If you just, I'll put the link, I'll put the PDF link as well. Okay, so I was writing on this just yesterday, maybe a day before, thinking about what. Attempting to express what my nature is with words. That's one of my, as you said, it's like talking about the thing that we don't actually have words for yet. For some reason, it's art. I think that's one of the reasons. It's like, in a way, art, but also truth, love, and beauty. Like they're actually, to me, the same thing. It's just being looked at in different ways. So I was writing, and I said the nature of our being, it wants to know itself. Like somehow it has this natural inclination to know itself, but because it, as a to use the metaphor with the lake and the ripples, the totality of it can never actually come to know its own nature, which is ironic because it's in this constant sort of push and pull of wanting to re-merge with the totality that it is, yet at the same time it's incapable of it because of the nature of it being a part of the whole and not the whole itself. And yet that's the thing that it just continually wants to do.
Mm-hmm. And this reminds me of something that Neil Donald Walsh talks about in Conversations with God, the trilogy, or the four books, if you want. That's where he says consciousness, oneness, isness, the undescribable, there is no duality there. So because there is no duality, there is no experience. Obviously, if you cannot experience sadness, there is no way to recognize happiness. So this is
Right.
the duality world that we live in. And so for oneness to experience itself, it needs these small individuations that we call humans, and maybe the rest of the animals and the kingdom, the life kingdom that we're in, to live in a world of duality. 0, 1, yes, no, hot, cold, up, down, sadness, happiness. It needs the duality so that it can have the observation of an experience, which is not possible in that outside of the game experience that's indescribable, where there is no duality, it's singularity, it's oneness, it's nothingness, it's isness, everythingness. Again, poor human language.
Okay, so 2 more questions for you.
And before you give these questions,
yeah.
I want to say that I have no proof of anything that I'm saying. I pulled all of this out of my, and so don't quote me on this. I'm doing the best I can to understand for myself how things are and to explain them to myself. And I'm purely sharing from that perspective of what my current understanding is. I'm not saying that this is the truth. This is something that I hold right now as my truth. But I'm not saying that this is the truth. I don't know what the truth is.
Yeah, thank you for saying that too. Something I've been attempting is to be as truthful in my speech as possible. And I notice, who's really supported me with this actually is Jordan Peterson. And I studied that guy, and I see the way he speaks and how he really takes his time. And I do my best to at least not be untruthful in what I'm saying. So I'm at least trying not to lie. Is essentially as good as what my communication attempts are. And I think there is something to that, because then I'm in a way like constantly checking in, and I'm like, okay, well, how true is this really? And am I doing this thing where like I have a self-image that I'm trying to protect, and so I want to say certain things but not say other things, or make something sound more, to exaggerate even, falls into this category. So I think it's actually super valuable to just express what you did, which in the same case is I have this list of 3 things. They're not even 3 things. This is what the list used to be. The 3 things that I know. 1 is I am, 2 is I don't know, and the 3rd is I'm not even sure about the first 2 sentences. So there's not, and now the list is down to 1 thing, and the 1 thing is it appears that something is happening. So
actually, I share this, the second one, I share this fully with you. Don't know. I don't know. And I also share other perspectives, like the world is the way it is. People are the way they are. Everybody's doing the best they can at the time they're doing it with the resources that they have. And the world is not necessarily a fair place. It just is. And nobody deserves any fair treatment, because this is the nature of life. Life is the way it is. But yeah, I am with you on especially on the second one, because a lot of grief and happiness comes from the I have to know, which then produces a life that's based on the question, what if, and then we live life from that perspective. What if? Well, when we get there, we'll see what if. Right now, it is what it is. So that's how I used to live my life, and now I'm learning more and more to relax into, hey, I don't know. I have preferences, but I'm releasing my attachments. I don't need to be attached to how it should look like and what it should be like. I would like it to be that way, but I'm fine either way. That way is fine. This way is also fine.
This is brilliant. This probably does answer the next question that I had, because what I'm hearing that you're saying, like how I'm understanding it, is that if we assume, even in a really really insignificant situation. Like, ooh, let's give an example. Like your partner has their alarm clock set for really early, and it goes off, and like the first thought you have is they're an inconsiderate person, and then this cascade of and then I feel guilty later because of it, of thinking that, or whatever it may be. And what I'm understanding that you're saying, and what I'm exploring myself, is don't even assume just don't make the least amount of possible assumptions necessary. I don't even know if one assumption is necessary, but make the least amount necessary, because we might be feeling feelings, investing our thought energy and investing our emotional energy on behalf of an identity that may not even actually exist. Like if we're really going to go to the base of it, it's like there might not be the thing behind this situation in the story in the way that you think there is, and you're continually re-solidifying that identity by subtly feeding into thinking that you know something about the first and foremost that identity even exists.
Well, I can see that, and I come at it from a slightly different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the perspective of, I cannot control other people. I cannot be responsible for other people. I have no right to be responsible or control other people. Although, in all honesty, even to this day, sometimes it slips and I try. I'm still not that refined to live it 100% of the time, but I'm getting close. And so I really resonate with something that Byron Katie says. And she says, this living in this, this should have been this way. It shouldn't have been this way. They shouldn't have said that. They should have said this. They should have done this. They shouldn't have done this. Is a losing battle, because they shouldn't have. And then she says, well, how do you know? Because they didn't. That's all you need to know. And it comes back to this. Everybody's doing the best they can with the resources that they have at the time. Everybody has the best intentions for doing the best they can with the resources they have at the time. So if they didn't do it any differently, it's because they couldn't. How do we know that they couldn't? It's because they didn't. And that's all we need to know. And she says something else that I love. She says, fighting with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. And so if somebody was inconsiderate, well, that's how they were. But they should have been different way. They should have been more considerate. Well, how do you know? They shouldn't have been. How do we know? It's because they weren't. And that's the end of the story. It's none of your business how they should have been. It's their business. She says, mind your business, not their business, and not God's business or reality's business. Stay in your business. I love her teachings in that regard. I love the teachings. It's just an invitation for such a new level of massive liberation. When you let go of having to control the world and all these should have and shouldn't have fall away, and including the expectations in the future. This should be that way. It shouldn't be that way. Well, when we get there, we'll see. And when it is this way, then there is no question, why is it this way? Because it's this way. That's it.
It is.
Because it is. It is.
What's great about Byron Katie, I think we may have talked about this in one of our meetings, maybe not, but there's a list. Ramana Maharshi, Muji, Eckhart Tolle. We talked about this when we talked about Ramana Maharshi a couple of weeks back. And all of these beings, we'll just call them beings, they had an awakening story that had something to do with self-inquiry. I don't know if you know this, Ivan, but when she had her awakening, like she was so depressed. Yeah. So maybe, do you know it well? Yeah. Do you want to tell it?
Just what I remember. I don't think I know it well, but she was in some kind of institution for women, and she found herself laying down on the floor, and basically she got up a completely different person because she had a realization there, but she had to go down to physically and mentally to that level where she was basically completely flat, which is pretty much very close to the experience of Eckhart Tolle. And I read his books 10 years ago, so it's kind of fading, but I know he also had that kind of awakening where he almost died or something like that, and then he had the awakening that allowed them to be the people who they are, so they can give us the wisdom that they gave.
Well, you're gonna absolutely love the string that's so synchronistically woven between all of these different things that we've been talking about. It's kind of blowing my mind right now. So Eckhart Tolle, he was in bed, he couldn't sleep. He said it was a sleepless night, right? He had this thought, I can't live with myself. And then he realized, like, what, are there two of me? Doesn't make it, which is a natural form of self-inquiry when you catch your mind splitting into this dualistic thing. And then he had his awakening. So he was in bed. Maybe he was trying to sleep. I don't know. We were talking about what was happening with you in deep sleep, and Byron Katie. This is the best freaking thing ever. She was sleeping or trying to sleep, napping, and she opened her eye. I just picture her like face on the ground, and she opens, I'm imagining as one eye. I don't know if she opened her eyes or one eye, and she sees like some kind of bug. It might have been a fly, an ant, or a cockroach. I don't remember what it was. But in this moment, she was in this like half awake, half asleep state. And she realized that she was not who she thought she was. She literally realized, whoa, she realized I'm not my temporary mind. I'm not my temporary body. And I'm sure as fuck is not the story that I've been telling myself for the past 40 years or whatever, however old she was. And then she had, like you said, this just, her entire life changed in a moment of half asleep, half awake consciousness, realizing who she was, which is interestingly fitting to what we talked about.
I don't think I've had that experience yet, or it hasn't brought me the wisdom. It's brought them so suddenly. Maybe mine will be very subtle, or maybe it's still in the future, in what we call the future now. Yeah, but I don't think I'm there yet. If there is anything or anywhere
there. One day, once we get there.
Yes, and somebody says one day is not on any printed calendar. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 30 or 31, but there is no printed one day.
One day.
That's for the procrastinators.
You know what? I think when we get there, Ivan, when you and I get there, when we all get there, I'm pretty sure when we're there one day, on that day, whatever it is, because it can't be here, it can't possibly be here and now, because on that day, I know we won't be talking about when one day will come. We certainly won't be having this conversation. That's funny.
Yes, that's right. And there won't be even a word like a day. You'll be totally irrelevant.
But maybe, who knows, maybe we'll be there and I'll say, Ivan, remember on that interview thing that it's one day long ago.
All
right. So okay, this is the
all right. Seems like we lost Christopher. And because we're still live on YouTube, I can see I was made a host automatically, so we'll wait for him to pop back in. And if it's an issue with his internet and he doesn't pop in very reasonable amount of time, then I'll stop the video and that'll be it. But let's give it time. And if you're not busy at all and you had time to watch this video so far, congratulations, because we were just riffing for an hour and a half now, even more. So congratulations and thank you for your patience. I really, really admire that. And maybe we said somewhere something that resonated with you in a way that will bring new thought and will take you in a direction of new inquiry. Or maybe we didn't, and it was just an entertainment. Maybe you're just passing in here for a couple of minutes and deciding that this is not interesting right now, and which is completely fine as well. So that's what I had on my side. Maybe his internet just dropped fully, which is interesting. And I'll look at my phone to see if I have a message from him. And thank you for your patience. By the way, the books that we talked about, if you're on this journey of similar inquiries, like the ones that we mentioned here, these books are highly, highly recommended. Maybe there will be the right books for you at the time you pick them up. Maybe they won't be, but I have a suspicion that at some point in your life, they will be very relevant for you. But let's see how it turns out for you. All right, maybe his internet is out, Christopher's internet, and seems like we'll be stopping the live video right here. And thank you for your patience, and hopefully we contributed to your experience in some way. Signing off, yours truly, Ivan Nikolov. And if you want to learn more about me and what I do, you can go to my website, which is ivannikolov.com. ivannikolov.com. Let's see one last thing. Yes, he's typing up, saying his phone died. So I guess he was streaming for his phone. Okay. All right, I will stop this video until he figures out what he wants to do. Oh, there he is. There he is. Connecting back up again.
All right.
All right, you're back. Sideways, appearing sideways for me for some reason.
How about now?
That's better. So I was doing my best to entertain your audience. I probably said a lot of things that don't make much sense, but we're still here. All right, brother, well, I'm glad to have you back.
I look forward to seeing whatever it was, but this you'll find really funny. I don't think anything you said will actually be there, because as far as I know, I'm really grateful that technology is at this point where my phone will die when I'm doing a recording and a live stream, and then when I turn it back on, it just like cuts right where that was and then jumps to this. So
well, let's see, because it kept saying that I'm live on YouTube and it made me the host. So maybe it was live, but hey, that's the truth of live TV. So it is what it is.
It's live, and we didn't really plan. I mean, you didn't plan anything. As far as I know, you didn't plan.
For sure. So, brother, is there anything else that you wanted to riff on? It's been more than 1.5 hours at this point. So,
can you believe it?
Yes, and we can. I know you. I know me. We've been away for 3 days somewhere in the Oregon area in the United States, where that was pretty much the constant thing that we were doing. So we can do this for a long time. I don't know if it's beneficial for your audience for us to keep going. I may have a few more minutes, and then maybe it'll be good to wrap it up.
Cool. Well, maybe then we could do a part 2. I'll ask my the final questions. If you're concise, it should be perfect. And if not, I'm happy to go further. So the last one would be this, like, okay, we had this conversation. It's great. We love it. We love if other people love it. If you could say in one sentence, if you could make a recommendation to somebody who's asking, right? Somebody who's genuinely, they have a readiness for what they would call, and this is going to be the general thing that's communicated in this hypothetical to you from them, which is they want to end suffering for themselves. Like that's I think fundamentally what we're talking about. And if they're maybe newer to this, but they said, my primary goal is to break out of the nonsense of whatever it is that's causing me suffering. Is there what would you do? Do you have a book? What would you suggest to this person? An experience? What would be something that you would offer to them?
Well, we already, can you hear me? It says my internet's unstable.
I can hear you.
Yeah. So we already talked about books. For me, of course, Ramana Maharshi and Anthony Di Mello, Awareness, are amazing books. They might not be for everybody right now, but at some point in life, they may be a relevant book. But I would say in one sentence, if I could sum it up in one sentence, for me, which is my path of learning, is two things. Number one is live in the process, not in the outcome, because that's where suffering comes from. Bro, expecting the result instead of being focused on the journey, that's where unhappiness comes from. Having an attachment to an expectation. But when we focus on the process instead of the outcome, then we're just in the process. The outcome is just a nice benefit if it happens. But if it doesn't happen, we were still focused on the process, which was the main thing. So number one, the process instead of the outcome. And number two, awareness, increased awareness in a way of stepping farther and farther out into being the observer of this subjective human experience that we have. This is the path for me.
That's brilliant. And the second thing, if I'm understanding you correctly, you could be doing that pretty much all the time. Like you could be bringing your, like, it's not just sitting and meditating where you have to bring yourself away from your experience. Like you can just be the observer no matter what you're doing. Would you say?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
If that's the objective. So we don't want to be attached to that either, because that
gotta remember number one
will be an outcome, right? But that's the preference.
Right.
That's the preference.
Brilliant. So they're interwoven as well, those two. You know,
yeah,
they're related.
Absolutely. I mean, the only way we can begin transcending our human conditions is by increasing awareness. And awareness is a function of universal consciousness, the way I see things. It's the only way. Unhappiness, misery, suffering is a function of we being the experience. And with increased consciousness, we are observing the experience, but we are not the experience.
Wow. Well, yeah, we can talk literally just about that one thing. We'll save that for when I see you in person and still not be finished.
Well, let's see if more than 5 people watch this video. Maybe that's a good sign that we should do another series, part of the series, and we can talk again.
Yeah, I guarantee there will be a minimum 5 people. Last question. What's your undercover superpower?
So I have the ability, just like you said in the beginning, I'm a generator. So I have the ability of seeing far standing dots and how these could relate and be connected. So I have this ability and skill, because I continue to develop it, to make sense of what doesn't make sense for some people, but I can see it. I can connect dots. I can make sense of things that don't make sense.
And you know what that means? If you're making sense, you're making money.
Different
kind of sense.
Let me ask you as we're wrapping up then, because I'm sure it'll be interesting for the viewers. What is your hidden gift?
It's funny. I've actually wrote this down earlier today. And I guess I'm just going to say it. When I want to take in the scenery, I have the ability to fly. And if I'm in a rush or I'm in a hurry, I can teleport wherever I need to be.
Okay.
You know what? what I really want to say is I have a really, really, and I appreciate it, and I even laugh at it if others don't. I have a really witty sense of humor, and I absolutely love to make other people laugh, and that's it might not be a secret, but that's definitely a superpower of mine.
Amazing. That's what we need more of. To inner child that's more alive. That's actually the medicine for me. That was
I remember
prescribed to me by a coach to lighten up, to be more my inner child than the serious Ivan, processing the world from that perspective. Beautiful.
Rule number 6. The only rule. Well, brother, thank you for doing this. I know even if nobody did watch it, I enjoyed just, connecting with you and exploring some of these things. And I get the great pleasure of Ivan and I haven't seen each other. Not that this matters to anybody, but it definitely matters to us in over a year. And we're going to be seeing each other soon in the physical, very, very soon, like in the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited to see you in person, brother. And just gratitude to you and Natka and whatever else you create for the rest of the day.
And on my side, I thoroughly enjoyed the last hour and a half or so that we had to just riff on stuff that we geek on from this unfiltered place without taking ourselves seriously, and with the caution to the audience to not take us seriously at all, because we're just
nothing was advice here.
Yeah, nothing was medical advice here. It was just two guys geeking on stuff that they're interested in, and dealing with the human condition in their own unique way. And the invitation was, hey, if something resonates, great. And it does. If it doesn't, maybe we entertain you for a moment, for as long as you chose to be present to this broadcast. And for that, we're grateful. Love to all of you.
Beautiful, brother. Thank you very much. And I have a feeling there will be a part 2, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with this one.
Exactly. Maybe we can do part 2 live when I see you.
Yes. All right. I now no longer have a feeling. There will be a part 2.
Let's see what comments we'll get, if we get any underneath this video.
Yeah.
Then we'll know.
Right. Beautiful. All right, bro. Thank you. Love you.
Love you too.